Welcome to Math Mini Lessons. This is a huge skill for 5th graders. We're going to add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators. So while I model, look to see how I find common denominators with whatever fraction is given, how I accurately add or subtract them, and how I express my final answer with full context in simplest form. So I'm going to give you different strategies, and of course use the one in the beginning that makes the most sense to you, and then once you feel confident there, try the other one. Here's our first one. What is the value of 5/8 and 4/10? So what I'm going to do with this one here, I'm going to give you two strategies. The first one is a table strategy, which will rely on skip counting. This is great for any kid who really struggles with finding common multiples. And I'm going to start with 5/8 on one, and here's 4/10 on the other. I like to start with the smaller fraction first. And again, this is for kids who can't think of a number that can be divided by both 8 and 10. So I'll start skip counting: 16, 24, 32, 40. And I do the same to the top, skip count by 5s, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And now I'll skip count by the 10s on the bottom. And with my numerators by 4s. And what I'm looking for here, I'm looking for two fractions that have the same denominator. Like, these are all fractions here. And I'm looking, and up I see two fractions right here that both have 40 as a denominator. And you might come up with fractions that have more than one, but I like to choose those smaller numbers. So this one's super helpful because I have them right here, 25 and 16. So now I can write it on the side, 25 40s minus 16 over 40. And now I can subtract them because they have the same denominator. And that gives me 9 40s. So hit pause and jot this down. Right, and now I want to give you one more method that can help with this. And again, this is helpful if you know what your common denominators are. So there are some kids who can look at 8 and 10 and they can find a common multiple and say, well, 40 is a common multiple. Or and let's say a kid goes and they say 80 is a common multiple. Let's go a little bigger, where some kids just multiply the two numbers to get 80. So what you can do is you can use your property of 1 to figure out what the equivalent fraction is. So in my mind, and right now you're probably doing in your head, you know that 8 times 10 makes 80, so 5 times 10 makes 50, and 8 times 10 makes 80 on the bottom, so 4 times 8 makes 32. And so you can subtract. And you may be going, well, Sarah, I got 18 over 80 this time. Before, your method had 9 over 40. This is true. These are both equivalent fractions. So how do I get these into simplest form? So anytime you finish adding or subtracting fractions, what I like to do is I like to think, can I get it in a more simple number? Is there any number I can divide using property of 1 that divides both my numerator and denominator? With 9 over 40, there's no number. When I think about the factors of 9, 1, 3, and 9, those are the factors. I can't divide 40. I can divide by 1, but that's not making it any smaller. But I can't divide by 3 and 9. So this is completely simplified. So now think of 18. And my factors for 18 are 1, 2, 9, and 18. Can I divide 80 by any of those numbers? And the answer is yeah. I can divide both of these numbers. I can divide 80 by 2. So I can divide 18 divided by 2 is 9 over 40. And what do you know? Now I have it in simplest form. So these are two methods that you can use to subtract fractions with different denominators. You can use a table, or you can create like fractions using equivalent fractions and then subtract. Either way, you just want to check in and make sure they are both in simplest form. Hit pause and jot this down. Okay, now we have another set of fractions to add this time. Let's draw a line and I'll model both again just so you can see. And you choose the method that works best for you. So with the first one, 2/5. And 3/7. I'm just making a table. And again, this method is very helpful if you can't tell what the common multiple is. If you're not able to see it and it doesn't come to you very quickly, but you're really good at skip counting. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Now do 4, 6, 8, and 10. There you go. So far, let's go to these in the bottom. 4, 8, 21. Counted too fast. 21, 28, 35. 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15. So far I don't see anything. So I go to the smaller number again. 30. There we go. 35. I found it. So now we have those two fractions. And I can add them together. 14, 35 plus 15, 35 is equal to 29 over 35. And is this in simplest form? Yeah, because the only way I can divide 29 is 1 times 29, and I can't divide for 35. So this is simplified. This one is in simplest form. So this one works. Now, if you are able to already see, if you looked at these two fractions and you already knew that the common denominator was 35. And again, sometimes some kids just go, well, 5 times 7 is 35. I'm just going to go with that. That's fine. You can do that, but then use what you know about equivalent fractions and property 1 to make equivalent fractions. So here I know that I'm just multiplying both by 7. And on the bottom here, I'm multiplying both by 5. Now they're alike, and now I can add them up. So there you have it. Now I have an equivalent fraction. So you can hit pause and jot this down. These two methods are super helpful, and they can help someone who's a beginner and someone who feels like they're an apprentice. They kind of get it. They know how to use it pretty consistently. In this next part, I do want to show you one more method if you feel like you're an expert at this and you're ready for a challenge. But if you still feel like an apprentice, you can stop the video right here, and I will see you in the next one. All right, if you're still watching, then you're ready for an expert level strategy for adding or subtracting any fraction with unlike denominators. So the way this works is we know for both of these numbers, and let's just say I'm just going to erase this part for a second. If I wanted to make them the same denominator, I could just multiply each of these fractions by using the opposite denominator. What I mean by that is, here I can multiply by 5 over 5. Why? Because I'm using property of 1. I'm still multiplying by 1. And I can multiply on this side 2/5 by 7 over 7. And when I do that, I automatically get 14 over 35 and 15 over 35, and I can just add them up. So this is an expert level way. I like this method a lot. I see a lot of kids using this when they're multiplying. Here's the hard part though. A lot of kids do this in their heads and do not show their work. So as a teacher, you will probably see something like this. And the kid goes, well, this times this is 35. And 3 times 5 is 15. And 7 times 2 is 14. And so literally just write 14 plus 15. Now I know what happened here. I know that the kids created like denominators, and I know what they were doing when they're making cross products, because they really have 14 over 35 plus 15 over 35. But not a lot of teachers know that. So again, this is where showing your work is really helpful so that your thinking is visible, especially to the person who is looking at your work and giving you feedback. So not only being able to do something, but showing that you understand means making sure your work is visible on the page and that you can explain it in words. So this is an expert level way that you can add or subtract fractions with unlike denominators. All right, that's it for today's lesson. I will see you in the next one, Math Marvels. Take care and be well. Bye.